I'm Michael A. Comella. I'm originally from upstate New York, a little town called Newark, New York. A lot of people get it mixed up with Newark, New Jersey, but it's Newark, New York. I enlisted in the Army in Rochester at the age of 17. And from there, they sent me downtown Brooklyn to Fort Hamilton. And I was in the 1st Infantry Division there at Fort Hamilton. And from Fort Hamilton, they moved me to Fort Wadsworth. From Fort Wadsworth, I went to Fort Devens, Massachusetts. And they just moved me around just like I was a gypsy. And I didn't know from one day till the next what camp I was going to be in. And I was assigned to the 1st Infantry Division, L Company, of the 18th Infantry. And our 1st Division motto is no mission too difficult, no sacrifice too great, duty first. So I went to Puerto Rico, did a little amphibious training in Puerto Rico. And I was in North Carolina and South Carolina. And then when I got ready to go overseas, they sent us to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania. And then we got our orders that we was fixing to go overseas on the 15th day of May of 1942. So our division was redesigned of 15,000 men for operations of torch to invade of North Africa. And so we went to New York City and got on aboard the Queen Mary on the 2nd day of August of 1942. From there we sailed to Glasgow, Scotland, and we arrived there on the 8th day of August, which we crossed the ocean in 5 days.
That was quick.
Yeah. And from there, from Glasgow, Scotland, they moved us to Tidworth, England, to the barracks for us to do amphibious training with the United Kingdom troops. And on the 8th day of November, men of the 1st Infantry Division landed in Arzu, North Africa, Algiers, near Oran. Many casualties in the campaign to secure Tunisia. And December the 22nd of 42, the battle, Longstop Hill, and we stayed there until the 25th day of December of 1942. And January 25th, 1942, we was in the battle of the Valley in Tunisia. And the 18th of February of 1943, we did battle in the Kasserine Path against Rommel and his armored division. And Rommel was a pretty smart general. And he was trying to get a base where he could get some more gasoline for his tanks. And while we was in the Kasserine Path fighting them, he run out of gas. And he had us surrounded. If he had enough gas, we had all been annihilated. And out of 225 men in my company, there's 25 to 35 men that wasn't wounded or killed out of the group. And this was the turning point of the African campaign. 17th day of March in 1943, the 1st Division attacked Jaffa in Tunisia. And we fought there And on the 23rd day of March in 1943, the Battle of El Guitar, the whole division, for the first time, was in battle. And 29th day of November 1944, at Mel Road, Harrigan Forest in Germany, acted us back.
As you go through your notes and your remembrance of all of this, any time that you remember something in particular that you'd like to share as you're going through your notes,
Yeah.
Go ahead and just tell us. Right?
Okay. And the 16th day of November, or December of 44, the Germans launched Ardennes counterattack at Melamet in Belgium. All of the 1st Division took part in that. Well, in Belgium is where I received my first wound. And I was shot in the bottom of my lip and shot all my bottom teeth out. And on the 22nd day of December 1944, the Germans attacked repulses at Bagan in Berlin, in Belgium, I mean. And 6th of August, 1943, Tammany, Sicily, was captured. That's when we captured the city in Sicily. In 6th of June of 1944, D-Day operations Overlord, Omaha Beach, Normandy, France. We took part in it. We was on the first wave, and we lost quite a few troops there. And that's where I received my second wound, was there, but I was shot through the hand. The 26th day of July 1944, I was in Operation Cobra, breakout from Normandy, and we had a pretty tough fight there with the Germans, and we had quite a few casualties there. And the 15th day of January 1945, the division penetrated the Siegfried lines at Steinbach in Germany. The 25th day of February 1945, attacked across the Ruhr River and began the Rhineback offensive. That's where we did a lot of hard fighting. We fought a lot of foot troops, fought back and forth. We had quite a few casualties there. And in 9th of March of 1945, captured of Bonn, Germany, ended the resistance west of the Rhine River. And we set up security there for a long time. And that's when the 29th Division come in, and they relieved us there at Rhine River.
Were y'all glad to see them?
Oh, yeah. And the 27th day of March 1945, the breakout of the Rhine bridgehead. And so there we went back into combat there because they broke out. And 1 April 1945, sealed the Ruhr pocket of the Paderborn. That's in Germany. We secured the pocket there, so other troops could go through our lines. On the 12th day of April in 1945, Hart's Mountain campaign began, and we stayed there until the 18th day of April. And we rousted out enemy forces in the Hart's Mountain. And the 30th of April 1945, we reached Czechoslovakia, and that's where I earned my Purple Heart, my Silver Star and Bronze Star. I went up there and picked up my captain that had been severely wounded and brought him back behind the lines where I could get him treated, but he died in the meantime. So I didn't know nothing about being awarded these medals until after I was discharged from the Army. And the 3rd of September, the Battle of Mons, Belgium, entire division was involved in it. And so on the 17th day of May of 1943, my picture with the group that was left from the Kasserine Path that wasn't wounded or killed ended up in a Life magazine. And so I had a picture of it, and it was all worn out. I pasted it together back and forth. And Charlotte went somewhere, Charlotte Olenek went somewhere, and she found a book, May the 17th of 1943, Life magazine. She bought it, and she gave it to me for a Christmas present. So now I got the book. Yeah, it was real nice. I tried to pay her for it, but she would never tell me how much she paid for it. But I know she paid a good bit for it. And Charlotte's been doing wonders for us on this museum, and she's a hard pusher, and we enjoy her, and she pushes us so hard we give her the rank of a colonel, a bird colonel.
Colonel Charlotte.
Yeah.
But to put together an organization and an institution like this, it takes a person in charge who is really willing to take the bull by the horns.
That's right.
And go for it.
And Charlotte did a wonderful job. And now she's got a lot of people involved in it, and the whole town's turned out. And just like the man that owns this mall or the manager of it or whoever he is, give us this space for a museum, and which I think is real nice of them.
Absolutely.
Because I doubt if we could ever built a place of our own right at the start. Charlotte's been doing this for about 6 years. And
well, it's a dream come true.
Yeah. And she keeps us rolling.
You want a little sip of water, or you just start doing okay?
I'm still doing all right.
If you want some water, you stop anytime.
Yeah.
And he does it, which is shocking. What can you remember from your experiences that was a particularly bad day?
Well,
I know there were lots of them, but there may be one that sticks out in memory.
Well, the whole thing was a bad memory to me. Well, first of all, my buddy laying inside of me was killed, and that hurt me bad.
Do you remember where that was?
Yeah, that was in Arzu, North Africa, on our first invasion. And then my other buddy was shot through the back, and it come out his knee. And he got a $1 million wound, what we call a $1 million wound, and he come back to the States. And so him and I corresponded for about right up until last year is when he passed on. And he used to go, I used to go visit him in Florida, and he used to come up here and visit me here. But all of my time, all of it was bad. You know, you don't have nothing great when you're fighting in a war. And so I met a lot of good people, and I met some German soldiers that I talked to, interviewed and talked to. They said they didn't want to fight, that they was forced to fight because their families was, because they'd do something to their families if they didn't get out there and fight, which I don't think that should have been done. But who am I to say?
Kind of like blackmailing the family.
Yeah. And the only real problems that we had with any of the German soldiers were the SS troopers. Now, it was bred into them from childhood on up to not take no prisoners, to kill all they get. And I never did. And old Rommel, I don't know whether I should say this or not, Rommel called us the New York and Chicago gangsters. And then also, and he feared us, 1st Infantry Division. And he called us the Red One Bastards.
When you fear an enemy, you're going to call them names.
Yeah.
So it's probably a compliment.
Yeah. And but when I rotated back to the States, I had 123 points. And they rotated me back to the States to the 99th Division. And all my records show that I was in the discharge from the 99th Division, and I didn't like that because I did all my fighting with the 1st, and that's what I wanted all my paperwork to say, 1st Infantry Division. And I argued with them at Fort Dix, where I was discharged. And they said, no, we can't do that because you were assigned to us. And so that's it.
Well, you know the truth.
Yeah. Well, all my medals and stuff shows that they come from the 1st Infantry Division.
That's real important about my work here is to try to capture the reality
Yeah.
and the truth, and to have that for people of the future who want to know the truth.
Well, I had some good times and some bad times. Oh yeah, when I was in England, I was on an R&R in England, and I was in this little town, Essex on the Sea, and I was with my buddy, one of my other buddies, and I stopped in looking in a window at a place, and when I turned like this, my 1st Division insignia shined in the window. And I didn't know my brother was in there, but my brother was in there. And he told his buddies, he says, there's a guy at the 1st Division says he might know my brother. So they said, oh, sit down. He said, that's a big outfit. He probably wouldn't know your brother. So when I turned to walk off, he come out and hollered. He says, hey, soldier. And I turned around, it was my brother George. And that's the first time I've seen him in 4 years. And so we got together, and then they had an air raid, and we lost contact. And then his company commander gave him a pass. He was with the 4th Infantry Division with combat engineers, and his captain gave him a 4-day pass to come up there where I was stationed, and we got together again. We had a good time.
That's good.
Yeah.
Can you remember some other funny things that happened?
Oh,
Wasn't
no.
many funny things.
No, there wasn't too many funny things because I didn't have time to think of anything. And Oh, we used to go into town. We used to go to go and have a big time, go to the dances and go to the canteens, and we had a good time. We went to London. I met a couple of girls in London and had a good time. And the people in London treated us good. And I went in a restaurant there in Dorchester, England, and went in a restaurant, and me, a country boy, I didn't know too much, and I ordered a Welsh rabbit. And so the waitress brought it to me, and she brought me a toasted cheese sandwich. I said, now where's my rabbit? She said, that's what you ordered. So I eat that toasted cheese sandwich. Yeah. Well, really, I'm not too much of a talker. When I first came home, when I'd go to the movies, and I couldn't hardly stand it in the movies, especially when the newsreel come on, and all that noise, the bombing and all that. I'd have to leave. I just couldn't take it. And when I made a talk in here on the 4th, it hurt me so bad remembering some of the stuff that I almost got into tears. I just had to quit talking.
But you know what, and I say this sincerely, I'm not a veteran.
Yeah.
I've worked with veterans, I've known vets all my life. That's part of the healing process, is to try to learn to laugh about the worst things you ever experienced.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it, and I've seen it, if you can somehow learn to laugh, as that, in the horrible memories, you can overcome it. And,
Oh, yeah.
And you never get over it.
Well, I've overcome a lot of it. But, just like I said, see, there's 5 of us brothers in the service at the same time.
Oh,
There's me and 4 others. And my mother was a 5-star gold mother. And the greatest thing that happened to us, we all come back alive, all of us. And so that was a big help that kept my mother and daddy going, that we all come back alive after being in the war. And then after I got out, I did some time with a National Guard, the 36th Division, Company L, or Company C of the 143rd Infantry Division, Infantry, the 36th Division. And then from there, I went to Bryan, to the 420th Engineer Brigade. And then I stayed with them for about 3 years. And then I come back to Huntsville, and I joined the 45th Division over here at the Miller Armory.
The reserves?
The reserves. And I finished out 22 years, 2 months, and 2 days in the military.
Wow. I call that a lifer.
Yeah. So I draw a little pension for it, which is handy. And which at first I went, Colonel Etheridge is the one that talked to me to go and get in the National Guard. And he begged me and begged me and begged me, and I finally joined the National Guard back in 1948. And really, when I got out, I wanted to end my military career. But he talked me into getting in the National Guard. And then I was supposed to make warrant in Bryan. So I never did go to school on it. I didn't feel like going. They wanted to make me a helicopter pilot. And there was so many of these helicopters crashing, I was afraid of them.
What would you like a little
Yeah, might as well.
It's real good to have a little water handy when you're talking a lot.
Yeah.
Well, some of those Nazis that you and your friends ran out of North Africa and captured ended up between here and Trinity, and my dad
Yeah.
was over there guarding them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a guarding guy that y'all were running out of North Africa.
See, when I see my wife, see how I met my wife, her cousin was in my company. His name was Horace Stutz. And he had, when I went in the barracks, he had, oh, I don't know, he had about 100 pictures spread out on his bed. I said, what are you doing with all them pictures? He said, I'm writing to all these girls. He said, you want to write to one? I said, yeah. I said, I might as well. It gives me something to do. So I picked this picture up, which was his first cousin. And he didn't tell me that. So I kept corresponding with her. And all the time I was in Puerto Rico and overseas and back in the States, we corresponded. And then on November, Thanksgiving of 1945 is when I come to Texas. And that's when I first met her. And we was acquainted for about 2 months when we married. And we've been married ever since. We got married in December the 2nd of 1945, and we're still living together. And that's unusual for a person nowadays.
Well, your generation still had those values,
Yeah.
you know, that my generation grew up with.
Yeah.
I think it's lost today.
Oh, yeah. Now that's all they want to do is just move in with one and then with the other one, and which I don't think is right, according to the Bible.
It bothers me in many, many ways. That's the way it is. Do you have a message for the younger kids today?
Well, the only thing that I say that they need to come out here and look this over, because this is history for them. And it's going to be history for their children and their grandchildren. And if they don't come out here and look at this stuff and go on, because they don't teach history anymore in school. And this is something that they don't have anywhere else, you know, in a small town like this. And see, there's something else. Oh, I think, this is my personal feeling, I think it ought to be mandatory for a young kid that gets out of high school, or a young girl, it ought to be mandatory for them to get some military training, at least 2 years of military training. And I think it'd be a whole lot better, and our security would be sound. And that's about all I got to say.
It'd be a lot better country.
Yeah, it'd be a better country.
It seems to see, what I taught in college was sociology, and I went, a lot of sociologists I think are far to the left. I think they're socialists.
Oh, yeah.
I went the opposite way. I'm an ultra right-wing sociologist, and that's why I don't get along with sociologists. But it seems to me like the people of your generation gave everything you had to create what we enjoy today, which in my opinion, is coming apart at the seams.
Oh, yeah.
But your sacrifice is, as you say, it's not taught as it should be.
That's right.
And the kids today don't have a clue.
No.
The gentleman before you just said that a teacher, one of the schools he went to, you may have been there, ask a question, when was World War II? A teacher.
Yeah.
What's wrong with the education today?
That's what I'm talking
Do you
about.
have any idea what's wrong with the education today?
Well, no, not really. They just not teaching nothing in school no more. You know, most of the people, most of the teachers are expecting the families to educate their own kids. There's a few good teachers, and there's some bad teachers that's in there just for the money. But the good teachers can't do everything by themselves. And we have some good teachers here in Huntsville. And they went all out on these programs when we carried them to the school to educate the kids. And a lot of them helped us, got the kids together to come to the meetings, and we put on some programs for them, and they enjoyed it. We got letters from the kids, the school kids, and I know the teachers probably helped them write some of them, but they appreciated all we had done, and they appreciated us for being in the war. But just like I was reading an article in the paper the other day, that we almost was a French possession here. And either French or we was going to be. If we would have let it go at Pearl Harbor when the Japs invaded, we'd have probably been talking Japanese here. I mean, it's hard to say, but I'm telling the truth about this. And a lot of other people don't understand that.
But a lot of people, they don't have any investment in the country.
Yeah.
They don't have any stake. They are just reaping the rewards that your generation, my father's generation, created for us. I'm one of the people that appreciates it. And I can't even understand it. See, I can't understand it, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, when we made the landing at Omaha Beach, if it hadn't have been, just like I told them in that meeting the other day in my speech in there, if it wasn't for the USS Texas, I probably wouldn't be here today, because they saved us by bombing the land ahead of us, and we couldn't make no headways. And that SS Texas, people ought to go to San Jacinto where it's being displayed now and look over that Texas and look over them guns and see them guns could shoot for about 20, 30 miles, them long-range guns on that thing. But my first experience when I went overseas on the Queen Mary, there were so many troops on the Queen Mary that we had to sleep in shifts. One day we slept on top of the deck, the next day we might have been in bunks. But we'd rotate, and the meals, they run the mess 24 hours a day straight because they had so many troops to feed. And
What was your age? How old were you when you got in?
when I went in the Army, I was just barely 17. Yeah. And when I got I used to like to eat that fish and chips when I was in England. You know, put a little vinegar and stuff in there. And then I eat so much oxtail and kidney pudding, I began to look like an oxtail. And the British, a lot of times fed us, when we was on a British ship, a lot of times they fed us fish for breakfast. But, you know, when you're hungry, you'll eat almost anything. And
Do you have any remarks for your grandkids?
well, right now, My youngest grandson wanted me to fix him a book with all my deals.
That would be great.
So I'm fixing him a scrapbook right now, putting all the pictures in there that of mine and my friends and all. So my son come by the house one day and says, Daddy, says, how come you fixing Sean a scrapbook? I said, you never fixed me one. I said, you never did ask me for one. I said, but Sean did. I said, I'm fixing one for him. And I'm going to put these notes in there too. And see, like,
Get a copy of this too.
yeah, well, I'll give him a copy of that. But I really enjoyed I wouldn't give my experience of being in the military for nothing in this world. And see, I was in the peacetime military, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going to camp every summer. And I'd go to Mineral Wells, go to Weatherford, I'd go to Fort Polk, Fort Hood, and and I enjoyed going there. I'd meet a lot of different people, different walks of life. See, when I was a kid coming up, if somebody told me I was going to be a police officer, I'd have probably fought them. But see, I retired from the police department here in Huntsville. Spent 32 years with the city. And my wife was the first female officer hired in this city. And she spent 28 years with them. So my son's with a volunteer fire department here now. And he did a stretch in the military. He was at Fort Sill. He was with the 45th Division, Fort Sill. They were hospital guards. Then my other youngest grandson, my oldest grandson, pulled a hitch with the 1st Cavalry Signal Corps in Germany. So his picture's hanging on the wall, my son and mine. And see, I was a first sergeant, I was a private, then I was a corporal, and I was a sergeant, then I was a platoon sergeant, and then I ended up a first sergeant. And then in 1961, I was promoted from first sergeant to master sergeant E8, which in 1961, that was one of the highest ranks there was. And then they come out with an E9 and E10 for sergeant majors. And they wanted me to stay in a little longer. They said they'd make me an E9. I said, no, I said 22 years. I'm ready to get out.
So you can start giving the orders instead of taking them.
Yeah. See, old Silas Copeland, Sergeant Major of the Army, he's a personal friend of mine. And I think a lot of them. In fact, I was a real close friend of his brother-in-law's. And we got along real good. In fact, I'm learning a lot of things about these other people that's working here on their services that I wouldn't have known if I hadn't been out here working with them.
It's not in the history books.
No, it's not in the history books. And like Jack's a lot different than I am. Jack likes to talk a lot. And I don't know, I'm just not no speaker.
There's all kinds of people.
Yeah.
Some people, like, I'm an introvert, I prefer to sit in my room with the computer going, or my amateur radio going and that sort of thing. My dad likes to have a room full of folks.
Yeah.
So that's where we have trouble. He wants a lot of people around him to talk. I want quiet.
Yeah.
So, we're never know it. But there's all kinds of people.
Well, that's just like, My wife and I sat at home. We took a trip to Alaska in '93, and we enjoyed it. Took our dog with us. We got a dog weighs 75 pounds, and he's still with us.
What kind is it?
It's just a hound.
Big old hound.
Yeah, and when we come back, my wife got sick there, and so I had to go to British Columbia, because right there where we were in Alaska, they didn't have no doctors or no hospital or anything. So I went to British Columbia, Smither, British Columbia, and I went to the hospital, and I told the person at the desk, I says, my wife's kind of puny. I says, I wonder if I could see a doctor. She says, you have to pay $100 deposit because you don't live here. I says, $100 deposit? I said, will I get that back, or would that go toward the bill of to the doctor and all? They said, no. Says, that's just for the doctor to see you.
We got socialized medicine.
Yeah. So one lady overheard the conversation. She says, if you go downtown in Smither, says right down about 2 blocks from here, it says just past the park, there's a woman doctor down there. Her name's Hart, Mary Hart. I'll never forget that name. Says, you go down there and I'll guarantee you, says, she'll take care of you. So I went, carried my wife down there, went in there, and she looked at my wife and told her what she had. Says, now you go up here at the drugstore, I'm going to write you a prescription for some medicine. Says, when you take that medicine, says, when you get a feeling better, says, in a couple of days you'll be feeling better, says, but I want you to take it all. So when we got ready to leave, it says, how much I owe you? And she said, $25. I said, well, I only got $20 in the money right now. I says, but when I go to the drugstore, I says, I'll get some more money when I get the prescription. She said, no, forget it. She said, $20 would be plenty. So she wouldn't take the other $5 yeah. And she did wonders for my wife. But after we got back home, I pulled in the driveway with my motorhome, and that dog didn't want to get out. He just wanted to keep riding. And I can go out there to crank it up, and he thinks I'm going off somewhere and leave him, and he throws a fit to come out there and get in the motorhome with me, and I just crank it to keep the battery up.
What's the dog's name?
Toby.
Toby. Toby the hound.
Yeah. And when we was in Alaska, we went to a little old dainty store where they had a lot of glassware. And he wanted to go in there with us, and I said, no, you got to sit right here on the porch and wait till we come out. Says, you go in there, you'll break up stuff, and I won't be able to pay for it all. So there's men sitting on the porch, and when I come back out, they said, that's a smart dog. Says, he never did move after you told him not to move from there. Says, he just stayed right there and kept watching the door for you to come out. But dogs has got more sense than a lot of people give credit for.
That's right.
They got more sense than some people.
You may have seen there's a picture, I think it may have been a Norman Rockwell, but I'm not sure, but it's a picture of an old man sitting in front of his fireplace in a rocking chair.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I got one of those.
I love it.
Yeah.
The more people I meet, the more I like my dog.
Well, I got another picture of Norman Rockwell. It's a forest that he painted with a stream running through it and snakes and everything. But there's a guy wanting to get it from me. I said, no. I said, this is a prize that I want to keep. And so I'm going to keep it. And after something happens to me, then my grandkids can fight over what's left. But my medals and stuff are going to go to my youngest grandson.
There you go.
because he's the one that wanted me to make a scrapbook for him.
He's the one with interest.
Right. And right now he's got a son that's 3 years old. He's teaching his son about my experience in the war.
That's the way it's done.
Yeah.
That's the right way it's done.
Yeah. And so that's what's going to keep the United States together. But right now, I maybe feel with the Army shortage that they have, and the 1st Infantry Division, my special unit that I was with, they claim now that it's not combat ready. Says the only ones that's combat ready is the Army Reserves and National Guards. And that shouldn't be that way. They civilian soldiers. And with our country doing away with so many experienced military people, I'm afraid. But I can't run nothing but my mouth, and that's about it.
I listen to a lot of shortwave radio. And off camera, I don't want this on camera, but off camera, I can share with you some of the latest things that I know that's going on that's scary as hell.
Oh yeah, I know that. I know that. That's why I say I'm afraid. Afraid for my grandkids and my great-grandkids.
They just better learn to shoot straight.
That's right.
And go see a movie called The Patriot.
And, well, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder whether, just like people say, well, you were a hero. I said, no, I'm not a hero. I said, the heroes are the ones I left behind that's buried over there. I said, they're the heroes, not me. I said, I was fortunate to come back home, but they're not coming home. This when I first went in the Army. I was with a company on 18th Infantry. And I served under General Teddy Roosevelt Jr. He was my assistant divisional commander. And these are my ribbons. These are my medals. This Silver Star, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Good Conduct Medal. This is African campaign, European campaign. This is Army of Occupation, this one and this one. And this is my reserve medal here. And this is my rifle, expert with a rifle and hand grenades and a pistol. This is my rank with the 1st Division. I did some airborne jump training with the 82nd Airborne. And this is a German pillbox from in Sicily. And I took a picture of it when I went back over there, my wife and I took her around to show her a lot of. This is overlooking the valley and also a main highway coming into Sicily. And this is when we fought Rommel. This is a picture that come out in the Life magazine. That's me right there with a donut around. And this is one of Rommel's tanks from the African Corps. And I don't know where that rifle come from. That's not mine. I come back home with a German P-38 and a German Luger. But when I left New York to come to Texas to visit with my girlfriend then, my daddy gave them away. He says, when you left, he says, I didn't think you wanted them, so I gave them away. I said, Dad, I said, you give about $2,000 worth of guns away.